Attorney General Pam Bondi is working to walk back now some of her statements about prosecuting hate speech. The AG is now saying that the department will only go after and prosecute statements that incite violence, though that important element was not how she first presented it, saying on a podcast that DOJ would go after anyone for hate speech, could go after anyone for hate speech. Comments that the Wall Street Journal editorial board is taking on this morning. Here's just the first line of the piece from the editorial board. Is a basic understanding of the First Amendment too much to expect from the nation's attorney general? Hate speech is protected by the First Amendment, of course. CNN's Harry Enton is here to run the numbers on this. How are Bondi's comments getting people stirred?
What a disaster for Pam Bondi, and therefore, I'm Donald Trump. I'm just going, what the heck is going on here? You know, take a look here. Weekly Google searches for free speech. Get this. Up like a rocket, up 186% versus the 5-year average. I went back and looked at every single week. More folks are searching for free speech this week on Google than any week in at least 5 years. And of course, not surprisingly, who's the top trending topic with free speech? Well, it's Pam Bondi, of course. People are taking her comments, looking it up, interested in it. And as you saw from that Wall Street Journal editorial, they ain't liking it too much from the left to the right.
This also raises the question of what people think of any cabinet secretary any cabinet member when they get in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. What are people thinking about Pam Bondi?
Yeah, okay, so Pam Bondi was already underwater, and I wouldn't be surprised if she goes underwater more. Take a look here. The net popularity of Trump cabinet members. Look who has the lowest number on your screen right here that I could find. Look how far underwater Pam Bondi is at minus 19 points. Now, none of the folks on your screen here are in positive territory, but none of them are as far underwater as Pam Bondi at minus 19 points. Of course, RFK Jr. has been in the news recently, too, but he's well above where Pam Bondi is. He's at minus 7 points. She is more than 10 points more underwater than RFK Jr. is. And, of course, he's made a lot of controversial comments. She is, at least by the numbers that I'm looking at, the least liked member of Donald Trump's cabinet, and it ain't even close.
And it gets to the difference here, gets to the focus on the topics they've been, the topics they've been taking on. What is it for Bondi?
Yeah, okay. I mean, what is Pam Bondi probably most associated with before, of course, this whole free speech controversy? Well, of course, it was the Epstein files, which is something that nobody, for the most part, likes how the Trump administration has been handling them. Of course, she's been a key leadership role in this. I mean, look at this. Approval of the Trump administration on the Epstein files. It's just 19%. 90% of all votes, 67% disapprove. Among Democrats, it's 2%. Independents, 12%, and even among Republicans, you can't even get to 50% approval. And of course, this just goes all the way back. You're building a case step by step by step. Who is the biggest pain in the rear end in the Donald Trump administration for him? Who is he having to answer for? Oftentimes it's for Pam Bondi. The free speech situation is just another example of that. And we're just going to have to wait and see where it goes. But at this particular point, there's a reason why Pam Bondi is by far the lowest and the least liked member of Donald Trump's cabinet.
And reinforcing the point, if you campaign on something and you promise something over and over again and then you don't follow through with it, people do remember that.
Exactly right. And of course, Pam Bondi made some big promises on the Epstein files and could not deliver.
Not so far. John?
All right, with us now, CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings and Megan Hayes, the former White House director of message planning under President Biden. And Scott, when it comes to the attorney general in this issue of speech, to quote the horror movies, the calls are coming from inside the building, as in the conservative movement. I've been surprised, frankly, by some of the criticism from Eric Erickson, from Matt Walsh, from other people online, saying that what the attorney general is saying here isn't what we want to be hearing.
Well, what she said to start and where she wound up are two different things, and she did end up walking it back. That was a good thing. But there's a reason they're very upset about this and that they're defensive of free speech is because conservatives, I think, rightly believe that we have been fighting for free speech absolutism because for years it's been the left who's been trying to suppress speech, censor conservatives, and take away our voice. And so when you hear someone adopting sort of the language of the left, even in the heat of a moment, an emotional moment, which this moment over Charlie Kirk is, you have to recognize it and say, we can't go down that road. So the reason you saw all these people speaking out is because they know what the fight for free speech means and has meant to the conservative movement over the last few years.
It's a little curious to me, Megan, why she's been targeted in a way that Vice President Vance maybe has not, and others have not. Vice President Vance, in a podcast, basically told people to call their employers or call employers if they saw comments being made about the assassination of Charlie Kirk there. Yet, a lot of people seem more focused on Pam Bondi.
I think people are focused on Pam Bondi because she leads the DOJ and she actually has a lot of power where the vice president does not have a lot of power. He's a supporting character to the president. So I think that people are worried that if they are doing something on Twitter or saying something that the DOJ feels is inappropriate or what they consider hate speech, that they could come after them and make a lot of trouble. And I'm glad she walked the comments back, as Scott said. I think that's really important since it is protected under the First Amendment.
Let's talk about political conventions, which might be happening like tomorrow if all the people involved get their way. President Trump has been musing about the idea of holding some kind of gathering. I guess they could call it a convention. They call it whatever they want. But Megan, to you, the Democrats, I've heard talk about this as well before the midterms. What would the utility of it be, do you think?
I think it's a way to bring the party together to celebrate some of the wins that they've had, to make sure that people are on message and understand what Democrats actually stand for, not what the right or anyone else paints them to stand for. So I do think it's a good thing to do. I do think it is very costly. I'm not sure that's money well spent when we could be out there organizing and with boots on the ground, but that's up to the DNC to do. But I do think it is good to reinforce the message that the Democrats want leading into the midterms.
How would you run a convention for the Republicans, Scott?
Well, look, I agree with Megan. I think conventions as a messaging tool can be extremely powerful. You put your best speakers, your best messengers up on the stage. You get a chance to tell stories, not in 3-minute increments, but in long increments. So if it were me, I would certainly be highlighting the successes of the Trump policies. You know, here are the people who are winning under the economy. Here are the successes we're having on the border. I think actually in 2024, we cover the conventions live here on CNN. The Republican messaging really, and particularly coming after the assassination attempt, it was one of the best handled messaging vehicles I've ever seen. I've been to a bunch of them, been a delegate to a bunch of them. So if you could replicate something like that and tell a real story about, we did policy A, here's result B, it could be a great thing and rally your base.
I guess what I don't know or can't quite figure out is how it would be different in a midterm environment where historically you have people turning against the incumbent administration. And so maybe some of the biggest people you could put out are the very people that voters might not be as happy with.
Well, or on the other hand, you put the people out who are the leaders of your party. You have the president, you have the vice president, you have the cabinet, you have leaders in Congress. They're the ones that are entrusted with building the Republican policy machine and building the Republican brand. You give them a chance to talk to the American people about what they're doing. Look, it's a chance to fly. It's a chance to soar. And it's also a chance to highlight everyday people who are feeling the impacts, positive impacts of a certain policy.
And again, for the Democrats in the midterms, Megan, when Democrats have run successful midterm campaigns before, it has been having every candidate run their own race in their own way. If you're having a national convention and a national message, does that make it hard for Jared Golden in Maine to have the same type of message that a more progressive Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would have in Queens, for instance?
I think a lot of what the Democrats can do in a midterm sort of convention is to push back on the narrative that Republicans want. So making sure that people know that they were fighting to keep Medicaid and to keep kids on food assistance programs, and the big beautiful bill is cutting that. So I just think that that's the opportunity there. It's to rewrite a message and a narrative that's being pushed against them. But I do think that all politics is local, and what these candidates need in their own districts is going to be very important to getting them reelected and elected.
Megan, are you excited about Master of Ceremonies Mamdani at your convention? Because I think it would be amazing for you guys. We're all for it. Just
Are you excited Donald Trump's not on the ballot, so your midterms might not be as successful as they were would be if he was?
This is why I like the convention, because one of the biggest challenges of the Republican Party is to convert Trump-only voters into Republicans. Giving them a convention and a president to rally around in the middle of it when they wouldn't normally have it, I think it's a good thing.
We will see if either party follows through on this, and we will see how we'll cover it. That'll be exciting. All right, Scott Jennings, Megan Hayes, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.